Okay, here's our video on angle measures. So before we begin, we should know what an angle is, right? So an angle is when two rays meet and they form an angle, right? So an A has an endpoint, a ray that is, it has an endpoint, but it continues indefinitely on one end, so that's a ray. So when two rays meet, you form an angle. And where they meet is the vertex. That's the vertex. And when we measure angles, we'll be using, of course, a protractor. And as you can see, we have on this side, on the left side, we have the small numbers on top and big numbers on the bottom, but it reverses itself on this other direction. Because, of course, you can make a angle like this. That's a 90-degree angle. Also, you can make, let's say, a 50-degree angle. So this is 50 degrees, but you can do it also on the other side. So it's 50 degrees on this side, but on this side, you line it up, and you get 50 degrees on that side. And so you have, that's why you have the numbers on different sides of the protractor. But we'll be working with protractors in class. So again, you can create an angle pointing to one direction, like to the left, or you can point it to the right. And that's why the numbers are on different sides of the protractor. So we have some definitions to go over here. First is a line. So in art, you can make a line like that in art class, but in math, that's not really a line. A line doesn't have any endpoints. So that's a line. It continues indefinitely on both directions. That's a line. Now, if you made a line with endpoints, that's a line segment. So I have a line and a line segment. And we talked about a vertex before. The vertex is where two rays meet. An array, basically a ray has an endpoint and it continues indefinitely in one direction. Okay, let me just cover vertex again. Again, the vertex is the endpoint where two rays meet. Right? It also could be when we make polygons, let's say we make a quadrilateral, the endpoints of the polygons are all vertices. The plural for vertex is vertices. So these are vertices when you make a polygon. Okay, so let's look at the types of angles we can have. We can have an acute angle. An acute angle is less than 90 degrees. Or a right angle is 90 degrees. So remember when we drew them on the protractor, anything less than 90 degrees, anything in this area, will be an acute angle. And the 90-degree angle, looks like an L, is a straight. Is a right angle, that is. Now it could be in either direction. So again, we have a right angle. And now it's not considered a right angle unless you see that box. Or unless you measure it. So if you just had the line, it's not officially a right angle. That could be 89 degrees, for example. And again, it could be on the other side. So when you see that box there, where the two rays meet at the vertex, that is a right angle, or a 90-degree angle. Okay? Now another type of angle is an obtuse angle. Obtuse angles are greater than 90 degrees, but they're not 180 degrees. They're less than 180. And a straight angle is exactly 180 degrees. So a straight angle is just a line, basically, or a line segment. That's a straight angle. An obtuse would be greater than 90, but less than 180. Now, we will also come across angles that are greater than 180, and they're called reflex angles. And we'll talk about that in another video. See, here's we'll make a line segment. And we have two angles here, as you can see. One is acute, this is acute, and this one's obtuse. The acute is less than 90, and the obtuse is greater than 90, but it's not 180. And as you can see, they're both on the straight line, which we know is 180 degrees. we can take two angles. And the first two angles, let's say we take two angles that are less than 90 degrees. Both of them are less than 90 degrees. So if we cut this in half, we have a 45-degree angle here. So the other one must be 45 degrees because they all fit within the right angle. Two angles that equal 90 degrees are called complementary. So the sum of two angles that equal 90 degrees are complementary. So these two angles, these two 45-degree angles are complementary. So if I asked a question, let's say you didn't see that, and I said, what will make this angle A complementary to 45 degrees? Well, they won't be complementary unless they equal 90 degrees, and 45 plus 45 is 90. So A will have to equal the measure of A, angle A, will have to equal 45 degrees, and then they'll complement each other. So again, the complementary means the sum of the measures of two angles that equal 90 degrees. Another definition is supplementary. Supplementary is the sum of the measure of two angles that equal 180. Let's look at that one. Again, remember, 180 degrees is a straight line. So if I have one angle here, and let's say this angle is 80 degrees, just a rough draft. Okay, so that means angle A, the measure of angle A has to be 100 degrees. Because again, supplementary angles, as we said, the sum of the measures of the two angles has to equal 180. All right, so if I said, do these two angles supplement each other? They do if A is 100 degrees. And then you can say these two angles supplement each other. They're supplementary angles because both of them together, the sum of them, equal to 180. So let's see if you can do this one. We have a 90-degree angle, and you can tell because it has the box. And if this is 30 degrees, what angle, let's call it angle B this time, what should be the measure of angle B in order for this to complement each other? Remember, complementary, they have to equal 90. The measure of angle B has to be 60 degrees. And then they complement each other. So again, remember, supplementary is the sum of the measure of two angles that equal 180. And complementary, the sum of the measure of two angles that equal 90. Let's try another one. I have a straight line, which is, as you know, 180 degrees. And this says 120 degrees. What should be the measure of angle A? Now these two angles can't be more than 180 degrees because they're on the line. So the measure of angle A, what should it be? It should be 60 degrees. 60 plus 120 is 180. And they supplement each other. Now there's other definitions we need to know. Adjacent angles. Adjacent angles share a vertex. So here's A and B. Here's the vertex they share. They share a vertex and a side. This is the side they share. They're next to each other. They're adjacent. That's what adjacent angles are. Then we have vertical angles. Vertical angles are congruent. We should know the word congruent. Congruent means same shape, same size. Vertical angles are the same shape and same size. They have the same vertex and they're opposite each other. Remember, with adjacent angles, they're next to each other. With vertical angles, they're opposite each other. So here's an example. Which angles are opposite each other, right? So let's say this was angle, let's make that a C and we'll make that a D. So angle B and angle C are opposite each other. And they share a vertex. So angle B and angle C are vertical angles. And remember, vertical angles are congruent. They equal each other. So if angle B, let's say angle B was 60 degrees, well then angle C has to be 60 degrees. Right? And let's look at angle A now. Angle A and angle D are also vertical angles. They're opposite each other, and they share a vertex. Okay, let's do another example. Now here we have 4 angles. And by the way, these 4 angles, if you make a circle, these 4 angles have to equal 360 degrees, because a circle is 360 degrees. So if you knew 3 of these angles, you know what the other angle is, because it has to equal 360 degrees. Also, if you look at the line, straight lines are 180 degrees. So if this line's 180 degrees, angle A and angle D have to equal 100 degrees. The sum of these 2 angles have to equal 180 degrees. The same with A and C, or B and D, or C and B. So if angle A is, let's say angle A is 100 degrees, well, we know angle D has to be 80 degrees because they're on that straight line. And remember, straight lines are 180 degrees. 100 plus 80 is 180. Now remember, angle B and angle A were vertical. They shared a vertex, and they're opposite. So we know that if angle A is 100, angle B has to be 100. Same goes for C and D. If angle D is 80, angle C has to be 80. If you add all that up, you get 360 degrees. So let's look at another example here. Here we have 2 lines, and we have a lot of angles here. Angle 1, angle 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now this line that cuts through 2 parallel lines, remember 2 parallel lines never meet, this is called a transversal. And we'll talk about that more. So here we have angle 1 and angle 4, and they're on this line. And if they're on this line, this equals 180 degrees. So angle 1 and angle 4, angle 1 plus angle 4 have to equal 180 degrees. Same goes for angle 3 and angle 8, and angle 7 and angle 2, and angle 5 and angle 6. They have to equal 180 degrees. So, if angle 1 was 80 degrees, that's an easy one, angle 4 would have to be 100.